America is the greatest country in the world, and much of the world is great because of America. We look to America and we maybe don't really understand, much like a candidate who promises to make it great again. We don't really understand what it is that made it great, but we like to copy the things in America that have made it great, and to that extent, the rest of the world is much better off than it was before we had America. Um, but there are also bad things in America, and many people like to copy those. So the campus intifada that we've been covering for the past couple of weeks is now being imported to the UK. I mean, here in London, every Saturday, central London, we've spoken about this multiple times on the show, is a no-go zone for Jews, to the point that police tell people you look Jewish, you will get arrested if you don't leave. So it's nothing really new in the sense that pro-Hamas protesters, people who would like to see Jews exterminated, are out and about and loud about their views. But this is a new specific type of expression of those views. Welcome to the Daily Objective, day 210 of the war in Israel. Hey James, should we do you want to say anything before we go to that first clip where we see a little bit of this? Uh,
Well, your introduction was really, I think, right on point here. America has exported so many wonderful things to the world. The idea of freedom, in the way we have it, rights, the concept of individual rights as we have it, has influenced the world positively. In addition to all the other things, the economic benefits that we've sent out to the world. But it does seem that Britain also catches our viruses, cultural viruses, and it seems that sometimes the worst pathologies, perhaps because America is sort of on the cutting edge of things, it exports some of the worst intellectual and cultural pathologies to Britain. And I'm afraid it's happening again here once more.
so let's see. This is a report from the Telegraph, from their YouTube channel. The Telegraph is a British right of center, let's call it, newspaper. Let's see this report.
Is it possible to bring people on campus, like non-students or
Not at the moment. No, not for me.
Oh, okay. And when is is it possible during this time?
Free, free Palestine. In our hundreds and our millions, we are all Palestinians.
So I'm not a huge fan of making fun of their numbers at this point. It just started. It's not as well organized. They're copying something. It's hilarious to see those guys, meekly going free, free Palestine, like somebody's, forcing them to
Well,
say
well,
it.
contrasting the American and you go to the University of Leeds, you see this little, it looks like a little drum circle, a little camping outing for a few people compared to the vast demonstrations that are happening at Columbia and UCLA. Obviously, they're not in the same scale, number, or degree of violence. On the other hand, we did see, and well, two guys in our millions is kind of a sad comment, a bit risible. But the point is, though, Morgan of Ayn Rand Center UK reminded me just today how in 2020 there was a similar, that you first had a little echo in Britain, but then it became a much bigger, in effect, imitation of the demonstrations. And when you see in London them breaking into and barricading themselves in, that is a violation of everybody's rights. that is a violation of property rights. That's actually a violent threat. So that is a aspect of violence here, not just force in the broad sense that we use, because violence, as we've discussed on this channel, is kind of a squishy term in the way they use it. But here you can see very forceful rights violating things going on even in Britain right now. When they break in and barricade themselves into a building, that's violating other people's rights. That's actually even a violent threat. While we may kind of giggle at the Leeds encampment as being kind of a small drum circle or something, there is violence in effect going on there as well. And when they say, let's imitate, let's emulate what's going on in the United States, it's very disturbing, because in the United States, you have many cases now of vandalism, violence, attacks on police officers, human chains blocking Jewish, Christian, and other students from getting across campus. When that happens, that's systematic use of force. I did also notice that they have tents, and tents that look somewhat similar to the ones that we see popping up in America. So I wonder if the same organizations and money are behind those as well.
Yeah, tents for Palestine. By the way, it could be, the Telegraph mentioned that mentions that it's the weather. I mean, maybe that's a great excuse for anything in the UK. The weather is typically, it rains here. But yeah, remember, again, every Saturday, central London is blocked by these savages. And, they have the numbers. If those savages in America, this was very much helped or started in part by non-students. These non-students are, in some cases, professional activists. They're certainly financial backing. Qatar has enough money to pay these people if that's what it takes, or at least to provide them basic humanitarian aid. So there is potential, unfortunately, for this.
Well, there are outside agitators, and I have no doubt about it. There are organized forces of evil in this world, absolutely no question about it. And for the U.S. campuses, the estimates have been somewhere between a third or 50% of the agitators being arrested. And there's been over 2,200 arrests now at American universities over the last several days. Various campuses, involves more than 40 different campuses across the United States now. And as I say, it involves some violence now that's breaking out, real attacks on police officers and other people, apart from stabbing, a Jewish student in the eye. But let's not leave the universities off the hook here. Why is this happening at universities? Why are they focused on universities? Why would these outside agitators go to universities if they did not have tremendous support from the faculties, if they did not have some kind of implicit support from the university administrators? The universities are the center of the focus of bad ideas in the West. And you can see that the fact that the universities are the focus of these demonstrations, it is an indictment on higher education in the Western world. It is a thorough indictment of that. And we should not let these students off the hook. We should not let their faculties off the hook. Professors are being involved. Professors are across my country are involved in these demonstrations. And where do you think these little thugs are getting these ideas? From the professors.
Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, on a general note, do you think any political demonstrations should be allowed at universities, even peaceful ones for good causes? I think universities are places to learn and do scientific research. James, your thoughts.
Well, people have a right to free speech. And free speech includes hate speech. By the way, Mr. President Biden, the Supreme Court of my country has never recognized a hate speech exception. My speech, my words, written or spoken, can be just as awful and hateful and offensive as you can be. But we're not talking words here. Of course, college students have a right to free speech and even to peaceably assemble when they're not violating somebody else's rights. When they interfere with someone getting to a library or getting to their lecture or getting to their tutorial or getting to a professor's office to have a meeting with them, then they're interfering with the business that's going on at campus. Campuses are a place for learning and teaching. This is where people go to lectures, read books, go to tutorials and talk with professors. This is where learning and teaching happens. Anything that interferes with that business is violating the rights of both the university and the customers, the students. So if it's a peaceful protest with permission in a place that is out of the way and doesn't interfere with someone's rights, yeah, they have a right to free speech. But they don't have a right, never have a right, to interfere with other people's rights, simply their rights to get to a library, mind you. That in itself is the initiation of physical force and a violation of those students' rights. So I would say it's the same in universities as everywhere else. If I went to work at some factory, do I have a right to free? No, I have no right to interfere with the business going on at that factory. To the extent I do, do I have a right to my private opinions? Absolutely. When I'm out at lunch with my fellow employees, can I express my opinion? Absolutely. But anything I do that would interfere with the business going on there is a violation of the rights of the company and all the other employees there.
So, I mean, my answer is, first of all, I would like the universities to be privatized, all of them, and then if a private university, they can have a policy on this, that's their policy. If I
They
own the university,
They cannot allow, I don't care what a private, and I don't care how far, I agree with you. One of the main problems is government support of education. We've got to cut off all government support for education, and in this case, higher education in particular. Absolutely. But even a private university, let's say it was a religious university, a Catholic or Jewish university, and they had their particular point of view, would we allow rights violations? Would we allow them on campus because it was private property to beat up certain students? To murder them, rape?
no, I mean, so the
No.
the question was about peaceful protests, and
Ah,
again, a private university can have a policy on this. I would, if I ran a university, my policy would be no. This is not something that's a part of it. And Christian, I think you mentioned in the comment, yeah, you said I would love to see political debates at universities, but not demonstrations, even peaceful ones. I don't think it should be part of university culture. I agree with that completely.
I agree with that in the general point that demonstrations aren't going to convince people. It's not, as I've said many times on this channel over the last 2 years, demonstrations aren't what convinces people. It does quite the reverse. It's the ideas that you're taught in class that are going to have the big impact. It is discussions and debates. You're absolutely right in that sense.
Yeah,
And
and
any
also,
kind of demonstration that interferes with other people's rights.
yeah, and
So,
a person who says, well, this person is these people are blocking the road, or they're blocking my way, they're chanting, they're a nuisance, that's a reason for me to listen to them, is not the kind of person I would want, on my side of any issue.
right.
Another person I wouldn't want on my side of any issue is this girl we're about to see being interviewed on British television. Let's watch it.
Well, let's now speak to Ella Ward, who is a spokesperson at Youth Demand. I'm delighted to say she's joining us on the show to explain what's going on, what she plans to do and why she thinks it needs to happen. Hi, Ella. How are you doing?
Morning, Alex. How? Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on as well.
No, good. It is my absolute pleasure. Now, first of all, let's start off with what are you planning to do and why?
So, like you said, we're from Youth Demand, which is a non-violent group of young people to call on a two-way arms embargo on Israel and also no new oil and gas licenses. And we're doing that because Tory and Labour are both driving genocide. The political system we've got at the moment is totally broken, and young people have realised that, and we're demanding better. So we're going to be engaging in non-violent resistance, and we're joining lots of other student protest groups to set up encampments at different universities, and we'll also be taking action in London this summer.
Why do you think that it's necessary to have a two-way arms embargo with Israel? How is that going to benefit this country, or indeed change the situation in the Middle East?
Well, a genocide's happening right now in Israel, in Palestine.
The UN haven't called it a genocide.
The International Court of Justice has called it a genocide. We can argue over the words if you like, but essentially,
how's this going to change the situation?
15,000 children
Let's pause it.
killed,
Let's
Alex.
pause it for a second, Daniel, because so by the way, I'm watching this for the first time. I saw the first few seconds and I had enough, and now I'm watching this again. Yeah, so she does what these people do, which is repeat the word genocide as much as they can, and yeah, as Jesse says in the chat, the International Court of Justice didn't say it's genocide.
They have not. That was going to be my first comment. Thank you for that. I mean,
Yeah,
there has
and
not been any such official ruling
yeah,
yet.
and of course, if there is, that doesn't make it so. That's the
Right.
thing with this
And that's the
kangaroo
most
court.
important thing. The fact I don't really give a hoot what the International Court of Justice thinks. They are totally illegitimate, corrupt. In fact, they're promoters of evil. They are promoters of evil. So whatever they say is, I'm going to ignore or attack. I can tell you that before sight unseen, before they even make their ruling. Even if they rule in Israel's favor, I would still advocate their abolition. But yeah, she and nonviolent. She doesn't. You want to talk about words like genocide and violence in that first we can debate what the words mean. No, the words are clear here. Gal, she seems like a perfectly pleasant young student at the University of Leeds. She is defending genocide. She is utterly blind to the overtly stated genocidal intentions of Hamas and Hezbollah. She is overtly, evading what the real genocidal actions of October 7th. She is evading, like all these other guys do, the horrific civilian death toll of the last Intifada when they call for worldwide Intifada, and they use these words they don't even mean. And nonviolent. No, anytime you're forcing someone else, that's wrong. So to use the word violence is, you don't have to go out. Violence does seem to mean an attack on someone else. On the other, violently in that sense, more than just simply say a human chain might be thick. But that's violence in my view.
Yeah,
Blocking
but a big part of the war on words is a big part of their war. There is a war there on thinking, and yeah, so you see that with everything, including nonviolence, including genocide, which she repeats a few times, and then when the interviewer challenges her on it, she said we can argue about the meaning of words or
Right.
something to that effect. And I'm really disappointed in the interviewer not taking her up on that offer and saying, okay,
Right.
let's talk about this because you are saying that this is the reason you're doing what you're doing, and then you say we can argue about it. Well, we can argue about it, and we can say no, this is bullshit. What you're saying is just factually incorrect. Genocide or an attempted genocide is what happened on October 7th. What Israel is doing is trying to prevent that genocide from actually from what the Palestinian people have said they want to do, which is repeat it again and again until there are no more Jews left to kill.
She has an intrinsicist view about the evil of death and violence. All she has to do is cite mortality statistics, which we know to be very dubious, impossible kind of numbers that we're getting from Hamas. Statisticians repeatedly pointed out to me how the Hamas numbers cannot be relied upon, but she just accepts them. But notice the moral approach. All those deaths are just intrinsically wrong because they're deaths. Think of what she's evading. All the deaths on October 7th, all the deaths from the Intifada, all the other kinds of deaths that are going to happen if there are repeated October 7th again and again and again in the future. So in her intrinsicist attack on the Israeli murder of all these innocent children, she's totally evading the wider context of murder and death. She calls it murder too. Israelis are murdering. Wait, that destroys the self-defense concept altogether. She's evading altogether the violence on the other side, as if it doesn't even exist.
All right, Daniel has an update on this. We'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to get through a bit more of the interview. And thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Gail says some claim Intifada is simply, quote, an uprising. How to respond? I think that's what the word means. But when they say Intifada, they're referring to what is called the Intifada and the Second Intifada that the Palestinians started against Israel, which involved murder of Jewish people and Israelis wherever they managed to do so. So when they use the word Intifada in this context, that is what it means. Whether or not they know it, whether or not they're repeating what somebody told them they should say, that's what it means. It means a violent, murderous uprising in this context to kill Jews. Let's play a bit more of that clip.
Well, let's now speak.
Words, if you like, but essentially,
how's this going to change the situation?
15,000 children have been killed, Alex, and they're being killed with weapons that are being made in the UK.
Okay, no,
So
actually,
give me,
hold on, Ella, what is the percentage of Israel's armaments that we are selling to them? How many weapons from the UK are going there? What percentage?
Look, as students in the UK, the things that we have the ability to change is what our government do.
I'm glad you're standing up for things you want to change. What I'm asking you is how not going to tutorials and lessons, you pay very high tuition fees, how that's going to change what's going on in the Middle East. Because I'll tell you the percentage of Israel's arms that come from the UK is not 0.9%. That is from the Campaign Against Arms Trade, whose, I would imagine, whose position you pretty much support. Now, not only is it only 0.9%, these are dual-use goods, which means they're not actually arms. They're things like widgets and buttons and things that could be used on a computer as much as it could in a tank. So how is locking yourself up on campus, disrupting people's education you pay a lot of money for, when it's only 0.9% of their weapons and it's dual-use, going to change anything?
Well, that's 0.9% too high, frankly. And it's not just these widgets that you talk about. We know that drones are going over. We know that engines for drones are being made in this country. And we need to say that we can't have UK-made bombs committing genocide.
But it's not UK-made bombs, is it?
Do you not think that we shouldn't be killing 15,000 children with weapons?
But we're not.
We're
not, because I've just told you the statistics of what we are selling to Israel. So it isn't what you're saying at all, is it? It is a far cry from that. And actually, they essentially provide us with far more technology that protects us in terms of things like cyber warfare. So if we have a two-way embargo, then we're actually preventing ourselves from defending ourselves when we're really not sending bombs and missiles over to Israel in the first place.
Look, Alex, it's not a complicated demand. Israel is committing a genocide and we need to stop arming them. It's not complicated.
Well, fine. If we stop selling the 0.9% of widgets and button code.
Oh my God. I was told maybe I shouldn't call people retarded on this show, so I will again not refer to her as retarded, but Jesus Christ. I mean, look, at some point I was thinking this girl must have had some media training, because she knows how to not attempt to answer a factual question that she doesn't have the answer to. For example, what percentage of arms is being sold, and she pivots well, but she always ends up with repeating this word genocide. Which again, why did the interviewer not take her up on the offer of let's argue about this word? Because this is what you're saying is why we should do this. Now, of course, it would be interesting also to see what she thinks about because of two-way embargo, about the UK hurting the UK by not trading with Israel. I think that's not something she has a problem with, but I don't know if that's being asked later on.
No, what disappointed me was in the weakness of the response. Is obviously Britain should be helping Israel more and selling missiles and rockets if Israel needs it. And this student should learn that if she wants political change in British foreign policy, demonstrations are not the way to do it. She can't force that. She's got to go do it through argument and debate and ideas. She can't do it through demonstrations and camping out on campus or preventing other students from getting to class. That is not within her right. That is not an argument of ideas. That is forcing other people and violating their rights. So if indeed the United Kingdom had decided to sell the advanced cruise missiles to Israel, she would have her right to demonstrate would not exist in my mind. She has no right to violate other students' rights because she disagrees with her government's policy, whatever, frankly, support the United Kingdom is giving to Israel. So that was the disappointing element there to me. If anything, she has to learn what life in a civilized democracy actually looks like, debating peacefully, going to the election box to solve these disputes, not violating other people's rights. That will not be effective as she seems to think it will be. But yeah, she just uses this word genocide as a meaningless term. I mean, I wouldn't use the word retarded. She has, in effect, because of her education, no doubt, simply given herself a self-inflicted lobotomy.
I also wouldn't use the word retarded. I think I said I'm refraining from calling her retarded, even though I think she is retarded. But anyway, so I'm just gonna quickly go. Daniel sent me this breaking news. Now I have to say this is from some Twitter accounts that are pro Hamas, but let's read it as it is. So Goldsmiths University in South London has agreed to demands made by the students. The demands, or the key demands, according to this account, are as follows: scholarships for Palestinian students, renaming lecture hall after slain journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. Remember, this is the Al Jazeera journalist, right? The propagandist who died in the line of duty, if you will, for the terrorist cause that her channel exists for. Adopting new ethical investment policy and review of pension fund. Statement condemning genocide in Gaza. Well, there we go again. There's nothing here about statement defining genocide. And review of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. This is, of course, something that many anti-Semites would like seen, redefining what anti-Semitism is, so that attacking Jews doesn't count. Anyway, yeah.
I'm going to make a prediction here. Thank you for capitulating to their demands and be allowing yourself to be victimized by their extortion. So they seize a building by force, and you then capitulate to their demands. Unbelievable. I can predict that this will, I do not know the future. Perhaps there'll be some outbreak of reason insanity, but this can only encourage more. This can only encourage more forceful takeovers of buildings. This can only encourage more violence of the kind we're seeing on American universities in Great Britain. By capitulating to their demands, thank you, Daniel, for the update. That is the most disturbing thing of all. By capitulating to their demands, you are encouraging more of this, and you're going to get more forceful, rights-violating demonstrations of this kind, and it's only going to get worse. It is capitulating to their demands that is by far the most disturbing aspect of what's happening here, in my view.
Yeah. And Daniel just sent the link to the official website of Goldsmiths University, so this is official. All right, we only have a few minutes left. Let's quickly play some more of the interview.
And we need to stop arming them.
Well, fine. If we stop selling the 0.9% of widgets and button covers that we're giving them, then that's not really going to change the picture of what's going on in Israel at all. What it is going to do is prevent you from getting an education. On that matter, I'd quite like to inquire where you're getting your information from. What are your sources of news?
Well, I get news from lots of different places.
Such as?
I can send you some information over afterwards.
No, I'm just asking you where are you getting inspired to do this campaign? What are you reading? What information are you getting that makes you want to give up your education, lock yourself on a campus when you pay a lot of money and privilege to go to a university in the Western world? I want to know what it is you're reading that makes you want to do that, when I think it's pretty balmy and isn't going to change anything. So explain to me.
Alex, I think that you've managed to kind of disconnect from the fact that what I've read is that 35,000 people have been killed. That's
let's stick with that.
Fact.
Where do those? Okay, is it an absolute fact? Where do those statistics come from?
Well, those statistics are not disputed. Those statistics are coming from major news sources.
No, those statistics are coming from Hamas. They're the people who give the statistics. And how many of the 35,000 that Hamas say have been killed are militants, and how many are members of the public?
Well, 15,000 of them are children, Alex. And, the fact that we're arguing over numbers at the moment suggests that you think that there's a reasonable number of people to be killed.
No, I'm not saying that
maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. There is not an acceptable number of people, innocent people.
What I'm asking, if you're going to jeopardize
a genocide,
if you're going to jeopardize your education, what I was asking you is, if I was going to make a sacrifice that was going to potentially affect my future, waste me thousands of pounds that I'm going to have to pay back in tuition fees, disrupt life on campus for others.
Yeah, that's she definitely stepped up her game there with the interview. I mean, we're running out of time. I'm gonna, my weekend is sorted. I'm gonna watch this in a loop because it's fascinating. She can't even say where the 35. First of all, she can't name a news source that she gets her information from. Somebody in the chat named it. Yeah, it's probably Al Jazeera, but it could
Al
be
Jazeera.
it could be Channel 4. Channel 4 is basically Channel 4 in the UK. We've said we'll do a show about them, and we will at some point, but it is kind of another Al Jazeera in English, but
There
funded by
is
us.
no acceptable number. None. Zero. Zero Palestinians have to be killed for this entity, student, to be satisfied. How about October 7th? How many acceptable deaths there? 1,200 innocent civilians in a surprise attack, being raped to death, mutilated, burned alive, watching their families getting tortured and killed. How many is acceptable there, young lady? No, she evades totally the violence on one side and then says no acceptable amount. And she'll go on to say in this interview, if we don't have time, that we cannot support the Israeli state at all. I'm hearing on US campuses the Zionist entity, this dehumanizing term for Israel altogether, because they want them wiped out. They want these chants for 1948, the last time there was no Israel, these chants for a worldwide intifada. Yeah, these people, when she says the Israeli state is illegitimate, she is the one calling for genocide. She wants to set loose Hamas and Hezbollah to wipe out 6 to 8 million Jews in the area.
Yeah, and remember,
Unbelievable.
this is not, some big personal brand that, they have to invite specifically her. Like if you want to invite a rock star, you're not going to invite somebody from his, people who set up the stage. These organizations have multiple people. They choose their best people. That is their best people right there. To not being able to name a single news source, and then when asked about the numbers, saying it comes from multiple news sources. Yes, it's not the news sources. No BBC reporter went around and counted the bodies. Nobody in the Gaza Health Ministry went around and counted the bodies, but they're just reporting it as as the famous. You're muted, so whatever you're shouting, we can't hear.
I'm sorry. And we know Hamas lies.
Yeah,
they lied
yeah.
just about that hospital, for example. So she's believing the perpetrators of October 7th and all of their reported lies, what we know to be lies.
All right. I think there's a lot more to say about that interview. I'm not sure for how much longer it goes, but this show goes for 30 minutes and we're already over by 2 minutes. The reality show follows in a couple of minutes. The title of that is Pro-Hamas Students Present How to Debate a Zionist. Maybe their best people are not her. Maybe they are the people we're going to talk about in the reality show. Make sure you tune in for that. It starts in a couple of minutes. James, thanks for joining me. Thanks everybody for watching. If you think this content is valuable, consider liking it, sharing it, commenting, and of course, consider supporting us financially. Unlike these protesters, we don't have the backing of any major totalitarian regimes. So, of course, your support is much appreciated, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.